"I read every message between you and him," I said, as she froze mid-step, tears in her eyes, and all I could think was whether Lily had heard enough to destroy everything. I met Jessica 3 years ago, a woman who seemed to embody kindness and warmth. She was 30, a dedicated nurse, and a single mother to a beautiful little girl named Lily, who clung to her like she was her safe harbor. I remember the first time I saw them together, how Jessica's laughter lit up the room and how Lily's eyes sparkled with joy. There was something calming about her, something that made me feel like I could finally breathe after years of chaos. After a year of dating, we moved in together. I proposed one night under the stars, my heart racing as I slipped the ring on her finger. Jessica's eyes filled with tears of joy as she said yes, and in that moment, I felt as if I had finally found my forever. Lily started calling me Dad, and each night I tucked her into bed, kissing her forehead. Life felt perfect as we built our little family, sharing dreams and laughter. But then something shifted, almost imperceptibly at first. Jessica began going out more often. It started as an occasional night out with friends. I encouraged her to enjoy her freedom, to reconnect with the world outside our cozy home. But soon it became every weekend. I waited up for her, my heart racing with worry, wondering if she was safe. Then she stopped coming home altogether, no texts, no calls, just silence. The night she vanished was the hardest. I called her friends, frantically searching for answers. One of them finally told me she had left the bar with a man I'd never met. My stomach dropped when she said, "She's been using drugs, that guy is her dealer." The words echoed in my mind, twisting like a knife. Panic took over as I filed a missing person report, feeling like I was losing everything. Then, just as suddenly as she had disappeared, Jessica walked back through the door, looking like nothing had happened. I could see it in her eyes, she was hiding something. When I confronted her, she swore on Lily's life that she had stayed at a friend's house. But every detail felt wrong. Her story changed like the wind, finally settling on some excuse about a family emergency that required her to hide out in her mother's shed. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But every conversation with her friends revealed more lies, each one cracking my heart open a little further. "I didn't lie, I just didn't tell you everything," she insisted, but the words felt like daggers. The love I once cherished now felt unsafe, like a fragile glass sculpture on the edge of a table. Then came the shift I never expected. Jessica started guarding her phone like it was a treasure. She deleted messages and kept it under her pillow at night. When I asked her about it, she claimed it was just her OCD acting up, but my gut screamed that she was hiding something darker. It felt like she was living a double life, and I was left out in the cold. I loved her and Lily, but I realized something had to give. I couldn't keep begging for honesty in a relationship that seemed to thrive on deceit. Each time I asked her for the truth, I felt smaller, like I was begging for scraps of affection. So, when she announced she was going out again this weekend, I felt the weight of my decision closing in on me. I gently asked her to come home early. She laughed, brushing me off like I was ruining her fun. Now, as I stare at the woman I love, I'm faced with a painful truth. Love isn't enough when trust is broken. I never wanted to be in this position, but I felt a choice looming over me. So Reddit, AITA for feeling this way. Update 1. As I write this, I still can't shake the feeling of confusion. I can't believe that Jessica, the woman I loved and trusted, could do this to me. I spent hours reflecting on all the happy moments we shared, but now each memory felt like a heavy burden, like they were all just a beautiful dream that I could never return to. The laughter we shared, the quiet moments of tenderness, and the dreams we built together now felt like shards of glass, each one cutting deeper with every recollection. Lily, the sweet little girl, had no idea what was happening. I didn't want to hurt her, but every time I saw her innocent eyes, I felt guilty. I promised to protect her, to be the father she deserved, but now I felt like a fraud. How could I be the man she thought I was when everything around me was crumbling? Each time she ran to me with her arms wide open, a part of me wanted to collapse under the weight of my own failures. I wanted to shield her from the chaos, but how could I do that when I was lost in my own? I started reaching out to friends for support. I talked to Sam, a close friend who had seen our relationship blossom. He listened patiently, and when I shared Jessica's betrayal, he shook his head, concern etched on his face. "You need to face this, Ethan. You can't keep living a lie." His words cut through my confusion, and I knew he was right. It was time to confront the reality of the situation, even though my heart screamed for me to run away from it all. With Sam's encouragement, I began to plan what needed to happen next. I needed to dig deeper into what Jessica was hiding. I decided I would follow her, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I needed the truth. I had to know what was really going on outside of what she told me. It wasn't just about suspicion anymore. It was about discovering the reality of her life and the choices she was making. The thought of uncovering something more sinister made my stomach churn, but I felt I had no choice. The uncertainty was eating me alive. Over the next few days, I trailed Jessica as she went out with friends and spent long nights away from home. It was a strange mix of emotions. Part of me felt like a detective, while another part felt like a voyeur intruding into her life. I remember the first night I followed her. My heart raced as I parked a few blocks away from the bar, watching her laugh and chat with her friends. But then, the moment I dreaded happened. I spotted her leaving the bar with that man I had never met. The shock hit me like an electric jolt, and I snapped a picture as evidence. I didn't know how I would use it, but I needed to have proof, something solid to grasp onto in this whirlwind of doubt. When I shared my findings with Sam, he looked at me with concern, his brow furrowed. "Ethan, you're on the right path, but you need to prepare for the fallout. This could get more complicated than just her lying to you." I couldn't stop thinking about that. Could there be something worse going on? The idea of Jessica being involved with drugs or worse terrified me. The knot in my stomach tightened, twisting my insides in a way I had never felt before. As the days passed, I felt a growing sense of urgency. I had to confront Jessica to expose the lies and deception. But how could I do that without destroying everything? I decided to organize a family dinner, a setting where I could talk to her and Lily together. It would be the moment of truth, a chance to bring everything into the open without the distractions of the outside world. I envisioned sitting across from her, each word heavy with meaning, hoping she would finally be honest with me. I felt anxious and apprehensive. Would Jessica accept what I had to say? Would she admit to her lies? I didn't know, but I felt that I had to do this. The truth couldn't stay hidden forever, and every moment I spent in uncertainty chipped away at my soul. I could no longer pretend that everything was fine when the cracks were showing. So Reddit, I'm feeling a mix of anxiety and determination. Am I doing the right thing? Has anyone else faced a similar situation and can share how they handled it? I truly want to make the right choice for Lily and myself, but I'm scared. Update 2. Time continued to move on, and I felt like I was trapped in an endless nightmare. Each day dragged on, heavy with uncertainty, and every time I followed Jessica, I uncovered more suspicious behavior that made my heart sink deeper into despair. The weight of my thoughts felt unbearable, like I was carrying a mountain on my shoulders. I realized I couldn't just sit back and wait for a confrontation. I needed a plan for the storm brewing inside me. The more I learned, the more I felt like I was teetering on the edge of a cliff, ready to plunge into the abyss below, knowing there was no safety net to catch me. One afternoon, as I sat with Sam at a cafe, the weight of the world pressing down on me, I decided it was time to confront Jessica. I needed to prepare for every possible outcome, from her admitting her mistakes to her continuing to lie. Sam looked at me seriously, his brow furrowed. "You need to gather more evidence, maybe even look through her phone." "Are you sure that's a good idea?" I asked, the guilt already creeping in. "I don't want to invade her privacy. What if she finds out?" "You can't let her manipulate you anymore," he replied, his voice firm. "If you don't act, you might lose everything you care about. Lily needs a father who knows the truth, and you owe it to yourself to find out what's really going on." His words struck a chord within me, igniting a fire of determination I had almost forgotten existed. The desperation swelled within me, pushing me toward a decision I never thought I would have to make. That night, as the clock ticked toward midnight, I wrestled with my conscience, battling the storm of emotions raging inside me. But I knew I had to act. While Jessica was asleep, I quietly picked up her phone, my heart racing as I held it in my hands. The darkness of our bedroom felt suffocating, and each second stretched into eternity as I scrolled through her messages. My hands trembled, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me like a heavy shroud. I didn't know what I was hoping to find, but I needed something tangible, some shred of evidence that would confirm my worst fears. As I read through her texts, my heart sank further into despair. There were messages from that guy, flirty, intimate exchanges that made my stomach churn. "Can't wait to see you again," one message read, and I felt the air leave my lungs. The words echoed in my mind, twisting like a knife. Each message felt like a dagger piercing through my heart, revealing the betrayal I had been trying to deny. I was no longer just a victim of circumstance. I was a man on the brink of losing everything that mattered to me. When I returned home, I felt sick to my stomach, the reality of what I had discovered weighing heavily on my mind. I knew I couldn't just talk to Jessica calmly. I needed to confront her directly, and that would not be easy. I planned the family dinner as a setting where I could address everything with her and Lily present. It would be a moment of truth, a time to expose all the lies that had been festering beneath the surface. I imagined how that conversation would unfold, the tension thickening the air, the way Jessica might react. Would she break down? Would she lash out? The thought of her denying everything while I sat there, heart racing and palms sweating, made my skin crawl. I could visualize the scene, Lily, innocent and unaware, playing with her toys while Jessica and I engaged in a battle of words. I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders, and it was almost too much to bear. Would Jessica be able to accept what I had uncovered? Would she take responsibility for her actions? I wasn't sure, but I knew I had to do this. The truth couldn't remain hidden, and every moment I spent in uncertainty chipped away at my soul like a relentless tide eroding the shoreline. As the days passed, I found myself rehearsing the conversation in my mind, trying to anticipate her reactions. I wanted to approach the topic delicately, but I also knew that I had to be firm. I couldn't afford to let her manipulate the narrative any longer. I was tired of feeling like a pawn in her game, tired of begging for the truth. The idea of bringing it all up at dinner sent my anxiety into overdrive, but it was a necessary evil. I needed to make her understand the gravity of the situation. The night before the dinner, I could hardly sleep. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. Each time I closed my eyes, I envisioned the confrontation, the expressions on our faces, the silence that would hang in the air like a lead weight. I imagined Jessica's shock, the denial that would follow, and the inevitable tears. My heart ached for her, but I also felt a fierce sense of anger bubbling within me. How could she do this? How could she betray not just me, but Lily, the little girl who adored her? I organized the dinner, inviting a few close friends to support me if things got tense. Sam would be there to back me up if I needed a moment of encouragement. I wanted to create an environment where Jessica couldn't just brush off my concerns. It had to be serious. I had to make her understand how deeply her actions affected us. I needed to show her that this was not just a personal issue but a family crisis. The stakes were high, and I had to make sure she knew it. As I sat at home, feeling the weight of the upcoming confrontation, I realized that it wasn't just about Jessica's actions. It was about my own strength. I had spent so long feeling powerless, but now I was reclaiming my narrative. I was ready to stand up for myself and for Lily. The thought gave me a sense of purpose, but it was accompanied by a gnawing fear. What if I lost Jessica forever? What if this confrontation shattered the fragile family we had built? That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with my thoughts. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smiling face juxtaposed with the darkness of the betrayal. The tears threatened to spill over, but I held them back. I had to be strong. I had to be the protector Lily needed. I imagined her looking up at me, her big innocent eyes filled with trust. I couldn't let her down. I had to fight for her future. So Reddit, I'm feeling anxious and determined. Am I really ready for this confrontation? Does anyone have advice on how to handle a situation like this? I'm trying to prepare myself for whatever comes next, but I'm scared of what the truth might reveal. Update 3. Finally, the night of the family dinner arrived, and I felt a mixture of anticipation and dread swirling within me. The atmosphere in the house was thick with tension, and I could feel everyone's anxiety. Jessica was in the kitchen, cooking as usual, her movements almost mechanical. I watched her, trying to gauge her mood, but she seemed blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. I could see how she laughed and chatted with Lily, completely at ease, while I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. I tried to keep the mood light at the beginning of the dinner, sharing funny stories about Lily's new habits and trying to mask my own anxiety. I wanted to savor the moments of laughter and joy, but I could feel the heaviness in my chest, a reminder that the most important conversation was still ahead of me. As we finished our meal, the time for denial was over. I watched as Jessica wiped her hands on a towel, her smile fading slightly as she caught my gaze. "Jessica," I began, my voice shaky but resolute, "we need to talk about what's been happening. I feel like we're living in a cloud of lies and I can't continue like this." Jessica looked at me, her eyes wide with alarm. "Ethan, I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but I could see the panic starting to creep into her expression. The moment felt surreal, like we were both actors in a play and the script was about to take a dark turn. "I've seen the messages," I continued, my heart racing faster. "I know you've been seeing that guy. I followed you, and I can't just sit back and pretend everything is okay when it's not." My voice trembled as I delivered the words, each one feeling like a weight dropping into the pit of my stomach. The room fell silent, and I felt the weight of everyone's gaze on Jessica. She stepped back, her hands trembling, clearly at a loss for words. "Ethan, I can't explain," Jessica stammered, tears beginning to brim in her eyes. "I've been struggling with things I can't control." "That's not an excuse," I replied, my heart breaking but my resolve hardening. "Lily deserves better than this. We all do." The tears I had been holding back threatened to spill over, and I felt the emotional chasm widening between us. "Please, just let me explain," Jessica pleaded, her voice rising as she reached for my hand. I pulled away, needing to maintain my distance both physically and emotionally. "You've already had your chance to explain, and you chose to lie," I said, my voice steady but laced with hurt. Just then Lily, sensing the tension, looked up from her coloring book. "Mommy, why are you and Daddy upset?" Her innocent question cut through the heaviness like a knife, and I felt my heart shatter a little more. I glanced at Jessica, who was now visibly trembling. "Sweetheart, everything is fine," Jessica said, her voice wavering. "We just need to talk about some grown-up things." But I could see the fear in her eyes, the realization that our little family was on the brink of collapse. "I don't want to talk anymore," Lily shouted, her small voice breaking through the tension. "I want to play." I felt a pang of guilt wash over me. This was all for her, and yet here we were, pulling her into our chaos. "Lily, why don't you go play in your room for a bit?" I suggested gently, trying to keep my voice calm despite the storm raging inside me. She glanced between us, uncertainty etched on her face, but eventually retreated to her room, leaving Jessica and me alone in the charged atmosphere. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "We can't keep pretending everything is okay, Jessica. You've been lying to me, and I can't trust you anymore. I need to know what's going on, and I need you to be honest with me for once." The words poured out of me, raw and unfiltered, and I felt the tension crackle between us. Jessica's facade began to crumble. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought I could handle everything, that I could make it work without dragging you into my mess. I was scared." I could see the truth washing over her, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Scared of what?" I pressed, my heart pounding. "Scared of being caught or scared of losing everything?" As the words left my mouth, I felt a flicker of something, anger, sadness, but also a sense of clarity. I was done being the victim in this narrative. I was ready to reclaim my story. "I didn't want to lose you," she cried, the dam finally breaking. "I thought I could keep it under control, that I could manage my life on my own, but I couldn't." The vulnerability in her voice struck a chord, and for a moment I felt a pang of compassion battling against my fury. "I wanted to believe in us, Jessica. I wanted a family, but you've made it impossible for me to trust you," I said, my voice steady, though my heart ached for the love we once shared. "I need time to think about everything. I can't keep living like this." I could see her processing my words, the realization of what she had lost dawning on her like a cold wave. "Ethan, please," she pleaded, desperation coloring her voice. "I'll change, I'll get help, I'll do whatever it takes." But it felt too late. I had given her so many chances, and each time she had chosen the darkness over the light. "I need to protect Lily," I said, my voice firm. "I need to protect myself. I can't keep pretending that everything is fine when it's not." The dinner devolved into a long, emotional discussion that lasted for hours. Jessica finally opened up about everything: her relationship with the guy, her struggles with addiction, and the web of lies that had pushed us apart. I never realized just how deep her troubles ran, and it broke my heart to see her in such pain. but I also knew that I couldn't continue in a relationship built on deceit. By the time we finished talking, I felt exhausted. I had never wanted to see her in such turmoil, but I also knew that I couldn't continue living in this state of confusion. "I need space," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can't be here right now." The weight of my words hung in the air, and I felt the gravity of our situation settle in. I had never wanted to hurt her, but I also knew that I had to prioritize my own healing and that of my daughter. As I walked to Lily's room, I felt my heart heavy with the weight of uncertainty. I had never wanted to be in this position, but I understood that love alone was not enough when trust was shattered. So Reddit, I'm left with a mix of hope and sadness. I don't know if I did the right thing, but I feel like I've changed as a person. I'm trying to find a way forward for myself, Jessica, and Lily. Can anyone share their experiences with handling betrayal and rebuilding trust? What should I do next?